get ready to get shticky. Shticky Situations is sponsored by Corona Crush. Corona Crush is creating Jewish couples always. Join the Facebook group. Just search Corona Crush and look out for virtual speed dating events happening every other week. They're 100% free and 100% Jewish. Hey everybody! Before we get started with the episode, I just wanted to make a quick announcement. I know all of you members of Shticky Situation Nation love hearing new episodes of the podcast every week, but I just am getting a little bit busy with my real life. So I just wanted to let you know that don't worry, episodes will still continue, but I'm going to be releasing episodes every other week instead of every week. So I hope you enjoy the episode and keep listening. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Shticky Situations. I'm your host, Rachel, as you already know, because I'm unforgettable. Please, whatever platform you are listening on, go subscribe, follow. If the platform allows for it, give it a 5-star rating, a nice review. If you have nothing nice to say, keep it to yourself. You can send me a DM with any feedback that's constructive, but any mean comments, just keep to yourself. Everyone also please go like Shticky Situations page on Facebook, follow Shticky Situations Pod on Instagram, follow Shticky Situations Pod on TikTok, and if you would like to be a guest on my podcast, you can either reach out to me from Instagram or you can send me an email at shtickysituationspod@gmail.com. Or I have links for the application to be a guest in all of my posts on Corona Crush, as you guys have all seen, because that's my biggest sponsor. And there's also links on my Instagram page. So you can go and get those as well. If you would like to date me or any of my single guests, there are applications for those as well. You can find those on the Instagram or just reach out and I will be happy to send you the link. I would love to make some matches here. Listen, so today we have the honor of talking to a real matchmaker. I would love to be a matchmaker, so I'm just an amateur here, but if you're interested, reach out and I could try to make some matches. But with that, let's just get right into it, everybody. So I have an extra special guest today. Everyone, please welcome to the podcast, Shana. Shana, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I've been so looking forward to talking with you. I'm thrilled.
I've been looking forward to it also. It's been really exciting. As all of my listeners know, I have this partnership with Corona Crush, and it's opened the doors for me to talk to some really amazing people who are also involved with Corona Crush, and Shana is one of those people. So, Shana, can you just give a brief introduction about yourself and what you do and the work that you do?
Absolutely. So I'm Shana TB. I create matches for marriage-minded people, both in the U.S. as well as Israel. And yeah, if somebody is looking for somebody and they're, let's say, not finding the right match, they can turn to me and I'm here for it.
Wow. So I guess just to clarify, do you work with people of all ages, all religious backgrounds? What's your main demographic?
Yeah, actually I do. I work with people, I work with Jewish people everywhere of all, religious observances, whether they are culturally Jewish or whether they are Shomer Shabbat and kosher or whether they're not. I work with people and their preferences, so I can always find a match based on someone's preferences. And
Amazing.
all ages, whether you've never been married or somebody's divorced and they're looking for love, this time around, no problem. I got you.
That's amazing. And I guess we kind of just jumped right into it and skipped over my other questions that I ask all my guests. But can you tell my listeners just a little bit of information about yourself? It's what I ask all my guests. Mm-hmm. So age, location, relationship status, and religious denomination.
Okay. I am Shana TB. I am 45. I am married with 3 children. I'm originally from the US, from the suburbs of Detroit, and I currently live in northern Israel. However, we also go between Sarasota, Florida, and northern Israel. We have homes in both. And what is my religious affiliation? I would say traditional. Traditional. However, I did marry a Mizrahi guy, so I can eat rice on Passover.
It's all of the Ashkenazi girls' dreams.
I did. I did it.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so Shana, before we like talk about your work as a matchmaker, I know when I talked to you before, you said that you have some of your own personal dating stories that you want to tell. So I think it would be fun for our listeners to hear those first, and then maybe we can get into like some of your stories as a matchmaker. I definitely have some questions as someone who is a dater in the current world. I definitely have some questions to ask you as a matchmaker, but let's start with your stories. So I guess let's get right into it.
Awesome. That's exciting. So I would have to say that yes, I probably have a bunch of stories from my 20s when I lived in the Bay Area, California. But I have to tell you, how I met my husband is truly the best story. So can I start with that one?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so here it goes. I was living in Oakland, California, Northern California, and I was working as a social worker for the foster care system in Contra Costa County. And I was doing a home visit for a client where, like I was that family social worker, and I had locked my keys in my car. This was in 2008. You already know I'm 45. So anyway, this was in 2008. Okay, so I was working as a social worker in Contra Costa County, California, Northern California. It was 2008, and I was doing a home visit for a family, like I'm their social worker. And what happened was I locked my keys in my car, and I wasn't being picky. I wasn't like trying to find the best deal. I dialed 411 directory assistance, and I literally said, any locksmith in Oakland. So what happened at that point was they connected me with, back in the day, it was AAAAA, name of the business. Like that's how advertising went. It wasn't like how it is now with location based. So they sent me AAAAA plus 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 whatever random locksmith. And so guy pulls up, gets out of his van, starts trying to, open my car door. And the mother of the family, she's like looking at us both, looking us up and down. And she asks him, like, where are you from? And he's like, I'm from Israel. And she's like, oh my God, that girl's Jewish. You all have to go out on a date. So I'm like, awkward, like, I'm the social worker in this situation. He has no idea what I'm doing there. I don't know this locksmith. Anyway, it was very random. So long story short, he opens my car door, he gets my key out, she walks away. I think I even wrote him a check. I don't even use checks anymore. But anyway, I think I wrote him a check. And I was like, okay, thanks. And like I had taken my sunglasses off, and he was like, oh, he made some comment about like, oh, your eyes or something like that. And anyway, fast forward, like that's my husband. So
Oh my gosh.
I know I met him because I called for a locksmith. But honestly, thinking back, if I knew I would meet like a cute Israeli guy by calling a locksmith, like I would have definitely done that earlier. So yeah, so that's how we met. And then, we start dating. And a few months later, I was laid off along with like 20% of the, social workers. So he said to me, hey, I'll take you to Israel. Let's meet my whole family. I'm like, okay. At this point in my life, I'm like, let's see if a guy is gonna do what he says he's gonna do. So Wow, that's going to be a shocker if this guy is consistent. And he totally did. We went to Israel. I spent like, I don't know, 3 weeks or more there with him, meeting his family, and we agreed to either, like break up or get engaged. So we got engaged. And yeah, so that's how I met my husband. It's kind of a crazy story, and it's not that common to like randomly meet someone and be like, oh, I'm gonna marry this person. But that's what happened with us.
Wow. That is like, I don't know. It is a funny story, and it does go to show you that you do really never know where you're going to meet your person.
True, true. And honestly, everything that like people would write down on paper, as maybe what they're looking for, their must-haves, their deal breakers. Like we came from very different places in life. I was, raised in the Jewish suburbs of Detroit. I was living in, Oakland as a social worker. I had a master's degree. I come from like a totally different lifestyle than him. He's literally from the woods. Seriously, he's from a northern teeny moshav. While his world experience is great, he wasn't like formally educated, like all of the things that you think about when you're like, oh, I have to have these things. We definitely didn't match up on paper. I'm a teeny bit older than him. Just all these things didn't match up on paper, but for some reason, like everything worked. We had very similar core values. We were both like very close to our grandparents. We had both, just like extended family is important to us. We wanted to raise our kids in a Jewishly. So anyway, at the end of the day, it worked, but on paper, it just didn't seem like it would.
Yeah. Which is even more crazy because, like, I don't know. I'm sure as a matchmaker, and we'll get into this like later, especially with my questions. I'm sure you see everyone's lists of what they want and what they're looking for and everything. And it's like, I don't know. At least for me personally, like, I mean, of course, I have a list of what I'm looking for and what I want, but I also keep an open mind and like, I think about it and like, yeah, none of my past relationships have been successful, but yet, but they have been with guys who like I never even thought I would like end up with, and they all turned out to be good relationships. So you really do never know who you're meant to be with, and you can think that you know all of these things that you want, and at the end of the day, maybe that's not what you need.
Exactly. I do tell people it is good to have a list, but then prioritize it by like the top three must haves. And why is it good to have a list? I mean, it's the same like going grocery shopping. You're not going to go into a grocery store while you're super hungry without a list, and then you're going to end up with a cart full of, I don't know, flaming hot Cheetos or, something ridiculous that doesn't really make sense. So I do say have a list, but at the same time, be open-minded, be flexible. Like, don't be rigid. Like, have a list, but like, don't be rigid.
Yeah. So, okay. So, Sheena, before we talk about like more from your work as a matchmaker, do you have some more dating stories from back in your dating days that you want to tell my listeners?
Oh boy. Yeah, let me grab one. Um, you know, I definitely I was, early on, I don't think I was dating for marriage. I was dating because I could. You know what I mean? And there's like a difference. There's like a difference between dating because you can and you want to, beside than dating for marriage. So I would say, dating because I could. I definitely met a lot of interesting people. I'm trying to think of like one, like bam, like a really good one. I feel like I've blocked a lot of them out. Once you get married, and like we've been married almost 13 years, so some of those dates kind of melted away. But during the whole process of dating, I definitely met some colorful characters, and you do learn a lot about yourself. But, I remember one time I met a musician. And I was really excited by meeting this musician. And my friend and I were invited to go to like a boat party. We're like, hey, we're so cool. We're going on a boat party, and like you had to wear all white, and that was really exciting. And I remember, it was a date because it was like a, romantic interest. And that party was really fun. I remember the party being really fun. But then I remember after, having meeting up with this musician afterwards, um, it just wasn't, it didn't have the same effect, once we met, for a date one-on-one. Like, that's when like all the doubt started coming in, and like I don't think he ended up really being maybe even who he said he was, and he might even, you know what I mean? Like all
Yeah.
that stuff comes up. Like, are you even really, okay, I get it, you're a musician, but like, are you even really like who you say you are? Are you, like, what's your, like, where do you even live? Like, what's your address? Like, some really basic stuff. Yeah, I remember that one. But like, in the beginning it was really exciting. Everything's like, ooh, we're going to a boat party and we're wearing white and the music was cool and it was like a cool Oakland scene and like everybody was so cool. But then, it was all just a facade. So there was a lot of that in dating where you think somebody's one thing, but really they're not.
Yeah. I don't know if I've had that so much. It's just more like everyone for in my personal for my personal experiences, I've just had like guys saying that they're great guys and talking themselves up and then like not treating me nicely.
Oh,
And I was actually talking about it. Of course, like every Shabbat meal I'm at, this podcast comes up and people are like, "Oh, tell us some stories, tell us some stories." And I'm like, "Listen to the podcast." But I don't know, we were getting to talking and they're like, "What's like the most things?" And I talked about I have a dating application. I haven't really
mhm.
used it in so long. The links are on my dating apps and all of that, but they're like, "Oh, what do you see most? Like, what are the things that guys do the most wrong?" Because, like you say, like you just trash guys that you date on the podcast. I'm like, okay, I don't trash all guys that I date. It's just like the ones who aren't good to me or
Yeah.
do something wrong. And like, yeah, some of them have done very, very weird things, and that I'll talk about on the podcast. But it's mostly just like the guys who like claim to be good guys, claim to treat girls right, and then don't. And I'm not saying like, oh, we go on a date and he's not interested and then tells me he's not interested. That's fine. You don't have to be interested in every single person you go out with. I do that
Mhm.
also. Like there are guys I go out with and I'm not interested. But it's like it's the guys who say they're going to treat you well and let you know and then they just like ghost you or string you along and aren't intentional. So, I don't know. That's my experience.
No, you're right. And once you meet somebody who keeps showing up for you and doing what he says he's going to do, there's nothing hotter than being consistent, really. I mean, you don't have to worry. There's no games like, oh my God, does he like me? Is he going to call? When somebody really shows up and they're like, I'm here for you, and they keep doing what they say they're going to doing, like for a woman, it's very comforting. You feel more secure and you're going to open up quicker. It actually will accelerate the relationship quicker with a level of consistency, you
Yeah.
know. Oh, that dumb boat story I told you, I'm telling you, like that was the time of, now you have an application, you can check on people. I think this was the era of MySpace, and that's probably, before your time. So that was that. But then when I met my husband, like he was still a locksmith at the time, and he would drive around and be doing different jobs, and he would pop over like in a non-creepy way, let me tell you, in a non-creepy way. But he would always be like, oh, I'm in your neighborhood, or I just opened the door, or I just did this, or I just did that. Like I never had to worry, does this guy like me or not? I always knew he did.
Yeah. I don't know if any of my listeners, I haven't said my like dating rules in a while,
Ooh,
but
let's hear it.
my number one dating rule is, and I did not make this up. I can't take credit for it. I heard it somewhere else. If he likes you, you'll know, and if he doesn't, you'll be confused.
Yeah, yeah, bingo. You got it.
Yeah, so like Shana was saying, like a guy who likes you, he'll do that and you'll know that he likes you and you don't have to play the games and guess. So, which is also to say, like for my female listeners out there, also you should not play games either.
Of
So,
course.
the games are the worst.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, no one needs that. It's only confusing and upsetting.
Yeah, I agree. So, wait, Shana, are there any other stories that you want to tell?
Honestly, at this point, I really, really think that the current stories that come from other people, like from matchmaking, are way more exciting and interesting. I'm
Okay.
telling you, once you get married, you just like, but you lock it. There's like the before married life, and then there's the after, and it's like they go in a vault.
Okay. That's totally fair. So, should we get into some of like, do you want to tell us some of the craziest stories that you've had for matchmaking then?
Absolutely. And I can
Okay.
also tell you that yes, there's crazy matchmaking stories about other people dating, but you know what is also crazy? The way that people approach me, usually, through Facebook Messenger or other, social media, messaging centers or my email. That's also another crazy story is how people approach me. Sometimes I'm like, well, and now I see why you're single, There's a lot of that too. So I have both. I have like crazy preferences, wild dating stories, and how people, approach me that I think is like out of bounds sometimes. But what do you want to hear first?
Let's hear some crazy stories first.
Okay. So this is this is a Florida story. So I work with people of all ages, and I had this one gentleman that was my client. He was well into his 70s. You would hope that he had learned some manners along the way, you know. But at this point, I had introduced him to a few different women prospects for dating, and his goal, as he stated, was long-term relationship, possibly leading to marriage. I mean, that's what I do. Why would somebody come to a matchmaker if they just wanted multiple first dates? I mean, stay on Tinder, my goodness. Seriously. But if you want to really find somebody for marriage, exclusivity, things like that, that's when you would, turn to a matchmaker, etc. So anyway, I set him up with this woman. He had certain preferences in terms of like, physical features. She had to be a 10. Let's just face it. Like for him, she had to be a 10. Not that he was a 10, but she had to be a 10. And so I set him up with this woman, about his age appropriate. He was in his 70s. Let's say she was 60 something, but like very gorgeous woman. And this is according to her. He meets her. I always tell people, meet in public. Meet in public. There's no reason to meet at a private residence for a first date. There just is zero reason. So they did meet in public, and she said that he, whips his car around like in a real, cool guy way. And he, I'm sure he had a gorgeous car. I think he had like a Bentley, some like real nice fancy car. Anyway, he like whips it around and like gives the keys to the valet, like very, I don't know, 80s bad guy, if you can imagine. Very 80s bad guy. And he like gives the keys to the valet. And she's like, my car's just as nice as yours, like cool it, man. Like no one needs this kind of like fronting. Um, and so like you're 70, relax. And then she said they had a really, they had a nice dinner, they had some drinks, they were like, having a really nice time. But she said that as he got more comfortable, he got a little bit more hands on, to the point where, like, I think he might have even like lifted her skirt up, something really
My
inappropriate.
gosh.
Yeah, like clearly inappropriate. And so she she told me all of this. She told me all of this. And I was, of course, while I definitely, believed her and what she was saying, I obviously had to hear, like, hey man, what happened on this date? you know? So he told me a similar but edited version, of the date, and how the drinks were flowing and they were really, connecting. And then he kind of tried to tell me, like, Shana, you just don't understand how 70-year-olds date. I'm like, oh, well, but I do understand respect and consent and, like, mutual respect. Anyway, fast forward, they didn't have a relationship, but, it was crazy to think that this guy didn't really have any manners. And it turned out to be, we actually ended our working relationship together because he didn't want to hear any coaching up. He didn't want the feedback. He wanted tens, and he wanted to be rude and gross and do whatever he wanted. So anyway, that's not an ideal client, and I didn't continue working with him. But I have to have some challenging conversations with people from time to time, and that's probably one of the harder things about being a matchmaker. But anyway, that was just kind of like a shocking date. Like, when I'm setting someone up, I'm vetting, I'm screening, and also my clients, like, I want to make sure that I'm representing a nice human being.
Yeah, for sure.
So that was
That's
that
had he
was
ever been married before, or he was like single his whole life?
married, grown children, probably a grandpa. Like,
Oh my gosh.
yeah, yeah, seriously.
Wow.
I would much rather, that's a really good example of, like, money doesn't buy whatever, XYZ. You know what I mean? Like, just because he paid me and he had, money, he wasn't like a likable person to work with.
Hmm.
So, I had to end that contract.
Wow. Oh my gosh. You
Surprising.
deal with a lot just from that one story.
Tell me about it. I mean, and that was, there's some extremes in that story. Not everybody is that, demanding.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's one. I mean, most people have nice dates, and they actually, respect me as a professional, and they want to hear my feedback, and they want to be coached up, and they want to have a good relationship. But when people come to me, and then sometimes, I realize after one or two, setups, then you start to realize, oh, this person really isn't coming to me because they're marriage minded, or they want to learn or grow or meet the right person. They just want to be introduced to, like, hot people. And that's not what my, service is all about.
Yeah. Do you have any other crazy stories that stick out to you? Or I
Yeah.
don't if you don't have any more, that's okay
No,
too.
of course. Yeah, definitely. Some other situations, it's more about people's preferences. I had another client. Listen, I'm going to paint a picture that I have, like, really not nice clients, which isn't true. I'm just highlighting, for the for the excitement of these crazy stories. But most of the people I work with are actually delightful. But anyway, this one guy, his preferences were just for, um, a woman with, like, a D cup, and,
Oh
like,
wow.
he could literally care about, he did not care about anything else. And he seemed like a great guy, and he actually is. He actually was a very sensitive, very um, sentimental kind of person. But for some reason, that was his preference. And I couldn't even introduce him to anybody um, without a D cup. So, anyway, here's the crazy story with this guy. So, I introduced him to a woman. First of all, his preference was for somebody super local to his area, okay? And while I do honor people's preferences, if I think there's a really good match, I might talk her up a little bit and say, hey, I think she's a really good match. She's a little bit outside, the 20 minutes you want to drive, he was really picky. So his preferences was for D cup, tall, thin, athletic, never had kids, but wants to have kids with him. Mind you, he's 48. And he wanted to meet somebody, who wanted to have children, and she had to have a certain physique and look and intelligence and this and this and this and this. So anyway, I was like, okay, guess what? I found you someone. Like, she really fits all these characteristics about that you want. And so I introduced them. And you know what he told me? He said, you know what? I'm not going to go on a date with her because she's a little bit outside geographically where I want to go. I said, okay, I really think it's going to be challenging to match exactly what you're looking for in exactly like your zip code. You know what I mean? But anyway, let's say a little bit of time passed. Let's say 2 weeks passed, okay? And then I get a message from her, and she's like, oh my God, I'm so excited for my date with so and so tonight. Excuse me. And I was like, oh, cool. Like, I didn't want to make it like I really didn't know, but I had no idea. So he was secretly like messaging her while he told me he wasn't interested. And then he drove to go see her. So anyway, she's like, I'm excited for my date with him tonight. I was like, great. What's your plan? What are you doing? I'm trying to like get some information. She's like, oh, we're gonna meet, we're gonna have dinner, et cetera, et cetera. Anyway, I comes to find out that he drove to see her. He had zero plan. If I were to have guided him along the way, I would have told him, hey, make sure you have like a hotel room. Make sure you keep your date to, 2 hours for the first date. Make sure you meet in public. Like, these are, certain guidelines for going on a first date with somebody. That's what I would have told him. But I found out that he slept over there. Like, he had never met her before. He slept over there. They had like a really long date. I think he was really a little out of bounds in terms of like physical contact. And then she tells me, I was like, oh, like, are you like, what, are there next steps after this date? Like, do you plan to see him again? And she liked him, but then she kind of backtracked real quick, and she was like, no, he was really too much. So he started to be a little too much, kind of love bombing, flowers, calling. He wasn't like a dangerous person, but he was just really smothering her. So anyway, she ended that, and it really took him, he was really, really devastated. And I'm trying to explain to him, like, well, this is why I'm involved, like, as a professional. Like, there's guidelines. Like, I'm not somebody who is just throwing matches in your direction. Like, there's guidelines, there's protocols. I need to make sure that people are following certain criteria and method, like dating methods. So that one was a flop, and it really took him a while to get over her. But I'm happy to say, once he had a couple dates that didn't go in his direction, I think he felt a little upset. And then he started, like, little by little implementing some of my strategies. And then by the time we finished working together, he was actually in a relationship with someone I had introduced him to. So he did the work. It started out one way, but it ended a different way. So I was happy about that.
Wow. I mean, at least it worked. I mean, you know what? It's good that he learned from it and at least it worked out for him in the end. But it just goes to
Oh,
show you
hope
might
so.
have ideas in your mind, but you should, if you're enlisting a professional for help, you should actually listen to them.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm not gonna like, hire a trainer or go to a doctor and be like, okay, I'm investing money. Listen, matchmaking, when you hire a professional, it's not a money saver. It's a time saver. You're investing in yourself. You come to a matchmaker because you want certain, you want to grow in certain ways. You want to meet the right person. I wouldn't like hire somebody and then I wouldn't hire somebody and then do the opposite.
Yeah, exactly. Um,
So
Shayna, before we get into more, let's just take a quick break to hear a word from our sponsors. We'll be right back with more. Shticky Situations is sponsored by Corona Crush. Are you tired of swiping on dating apps? Tired of guessing whether the cute guy or girl you keep seeing around is Jewish and or single? Then you need to run, not walk to join Corona Crush. Corona Crush is a Jewish organization working to create Jewish couples always. Corona Crush has over 30 confirmed engagements, over 22,000 members from all over the world, and has set up over 50,000 speed dates. Join the Corona Crush Facebook group and post yourself or have a friend post you and see who reaches out. Fill out the survey to sign up for virtual speed dating events happening every other week. Corona Crush is 100% free and 100% Jewish. Worst case, you end up with some stories of your own. Best case, you find the love of your life. Try it out today. Here on Shticky Situations, we tend to focus on bad dating stories, but sometimes dates do go well and lead to proposals and weddings. Who would have thought? And what do all of those require, you might be asking? Well, the answer is flowers. Who doesn't want flowers from someone they've been seeing? Don't forget, flower petals and bouquets needed for proposals. And that's even before all the flowers that go into weddings. Sticky Situations is sponsored by Primrose Flower Shop. In my opinion, Primrose is the coolest flower shop around and has the best customer service to fulfill all of your floral needs. Primrose offers a range of services from your basic bouquets to subscription services where you can get flowers delivered once a week. They deliver all over the tri state area, including Manhattan. Primrose does weddings, bar and bat mitzvahs, and other simchas. I've personally been to a wedding where Primrose did the flowers, and the work they did was beyond gorgeous. Primrose additionally offers in store proposals, including a romantic setup with candles and music. Primrose is located at 2922 Avenue M in Brooklyn, and the phone number is 929 376 9815. You can also follow Primrose on Instagram at PrimroseNY. So, if you can't get someone out of your head, buy them some flowers from Primrose. They'll either love it or they'll find you really creepy. But regardless, the flowers will be out of this world. We're back. So, okay, Shayna. So, I know you said there were a few things that you wanted to talk about as a matchmaker. So, there were the stories you had as a matchmaker. We'll get to like my questions at the end, but can you tell us? I think you said you had some crazy stories about how people reach out to you.
Oh my God. Yes, absolutely. First of all, this actually happened today. Do you believe this? I have a
Oh
really
my
crazy,
gosh.
probably my craziest reaching out story, and it happened today. And I was like, yes, I'm going to tell Rachel all about this.
I'm honored.
Yeah, seriously. That was like my first thought, so that's funny. So a guy reaches out to me and he's like, uh, hey, beautiful, or what, like, like, hey, whatever. I'm like, okay, let's see how this rolls. Anyway, so he starts telling me, do you, he basically starts hitting on me and asking me, to meet him for drinks, to meet him for dinner, to meet him for this, to meet him for that. And while staying professional, I told him, hey, I'm a matchmaker. First of all, I'm married with 3 kids, and I'm a matchmaker. But if you're interested in meeting eligible women who might want to meet you, this is what the conversation should be about. And that's it. I he didn't want to hear that. So first of all, as anybody knows, there's pictures for promotional purposes, and then there's like the day-to-day pictures of people. In my head, I'm like, wow, he saw like one of my, like a podcast picture, he saw like a promotional picture, and I'm like, oof, that's not what I look like every day. So in my head, I'm like, I'm like laughing about that. Like, does he even know who he's really talking to? But anyway, it didn't matter because obviously I'm, married with kids and all that. But he starts to take it like a step further and a step further. And I'm like, man, knock it off, and I'm trying to direct him like, hey, if great, you're single, amazing, join my private database. If you're not ready to hire a matchmaker and you want to be considered, for a match with one of my clients, all you need to do is join the private database and, I could reach out to you. He's like, yeah, let me do that. What's your number? I'm like, that's again, here's the database. Like, let's keep it professional. And then he sends me a list. He sends me a list of why women should date him. And I'm starting to read it. I'm like, okay, because I'm tall, I'm funny, I'm, make money. Uh-oh, red flag. Okay, because what's in my pants is this size, and here's my
Oh my gosh.
little accolades. I'm like, no, that's not the information your matchmaker wants to know. Anyway, so that just happened today, and
Oh my
it was pretty
gosh.
funny. Yeah, it was
And
pretty
how
funny.
how did you respond to that?
Professional and honestly, not seeming shocked because obviously, I'm in the field of dating and whatnot. I wasn't like shocked, but I kept it professional and, one compliment, okay, whatever. Thank you. You're so nice. But like when it got to a certain point, I'm like, like, no, like this is what we're talking about. We're talking about you meeting a woman. That is not me. And I might know a woman for you, but like this part of the conversation has to be over. And if you want to continue, it has to be about, matchmaking services. So, professional, friendly, but then like shutting it down quickly.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
I know, I know.
Is that the craziest one that you've had?
I mean, honestly, I've been waiting for like crazy pics. Like I'm wondering when that's going to happen. I feel like that's going to happen soon.
Oh
you
no.
know, I would say that was the most recent. And honestly, I was surprised because we knew a lot of people in common. Know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
that was surprising. It wasn't like a fake profile from, a different country. It was like, hey, we know the same people. Like that was weird. That part was shocking to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's been a trend lately of people, I mean, not saying catfishing is a new trend. Like obviously everybody knows about that, but there's been a trend more lately on social media where people will pick like they're really building fake profiles, like really building them out, of like guys holding puppies, surgeons with like whatever, making them look like they're really eligible bachelors, but like with a really cuddly side. So if you if you get a friend request, which a lot of women do, from somebody that looks like kind of too good to be true, then yeah, it's probably too good to be true.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. It's crazy.
Super
And
crazy.
then and Shana, before we get into like my questions, what there were a couple other things that you said you wanted to share from your experiences as a matchmaker.
Mm.
What were some of the other things that you said? I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, I had another story that it wasn't from a matchmaking client, but she was a coaching, a date and relationship coaching client,
Okay.
and this story, wow. this is something really wild. So she's a single mom, and she's really good at advocating for herself. You know, she will dig deep. She will find that traffic ticket. She will make sure your name is so and so. You know, like she'll really dig deep, and because she has to protect herself, and she's a single mom, and she has a daughter. You know,
Mhm.
so anyway, she was dating somebody for a few weeks. And she's like, he was so charming. We went to different restaurants. He was so nice to me, taking me out, going all around. And he would give her information, but like a little off, you know? And she started to get suspicious because she's like, he has this huge job. He's a big professional. Why isn't he on like LinkedIn? You know, like
Yeah.
anything. Why isn't he gives speeches around, you know, in his profession? Why is he not featured anywhere in an article? You know, like anyway, so she was getting suspicious, and she decided that she was really going to get to the bottom of it. So here was her plan. She devised the plan. Her plan was that I love it. This woman's hilarious. She should be on your show. She's so funny. Anyway,
Send her my
uh,
way. I'd be happy to have her.
oh my God, I will. She's hilarious. So she devised the plan where she was going to, they were going to meet for dinner somewhere. And before they met, she got there a little bit early, and she told the waitress, hey, I've been dating this guy for a while. I don't think he is who he says he is. And after he pays, you know, with the credit card, can you please tell me, is his name so and so? And the waitress is like, oh my God, girl, I got you, no problem. Sisterhood, we're doing this. So they had the dinner, had the drinks, had a lot of fun. And then they both went their separate ways after the date. And she turned around, like she drove off, doing the whole part. And then she, turns back around, goes back into the restaurant. She's like, oh my God, so is his name, so and so? And the waitress is like, no, his
Oh
name
my
is
God.
something completely different. And so she is like, I cannot believe it. She took action. She with his real name, she Googled him. She finds out he's lying about his age. He was married.
Oh my God.
And he had just bought a new house with his wife. So, so my friend, this woman, she dug up all the information, and she sent him screenshots, and she's like, bye. Like what? Like what were you
Wow.
thinking? What did you think was going to happen here? And there was backpedaling, and there was, oh my God, and sorry. And, but she's like, no, you can't trick me. Like, this is done. So that was something devastating for her. Made a hilarious story, but it was
That's
devastating.
crazy.
I know. Is that crazy?
Yeah, that's like the stuff that you see like on TV.
Yeah. This is like Tinder swindler level craziness, but like not for money. Yeah. But like not for money, but like for her time and affection and intimacy, for like for an affair.
Yeah.
So
Oh my God. Did she contact the wife?
no, she was just like, buddy, I know you're not telling the truth and we're done. So that was that. But I am happy to say that through some coaching and other, relationship coaching that we did together, I told her about one of my favorite colleagues. Her name's Aliza Ben Shalom. A lot of people know her. She's awesome. So we work closely together, Aliza and I. And I told my friend, coaching client, about the 5-date challenge. So Aliza explains it much better, but in a nutshell, I had her implement this 5-day challenge where I was like, hey, you started dating someone, you like them, right? She's like, yeah, I like them a lot. She's like, and I was like, okay, so let's implement this 5-day challenge where basically it was like, you have to go out on 5 dates within, let's say, 4 or 5 weeks, some like short amount of time period. Mix up the dates. You can't have like 5 drinks and dinner. It needs to be different settings, different times of day, different things. You need to also open up and have a list of things you want to find out about that person. But the cool thing about the 5-date challenge is that it takes the pressure off of, oh, am I going to see him again? Is he going to ask me out? Both people have to be on board or else you seem like super weird. You know what I mean? Yeah, it has to be like a mutual 5-date challenge. But once both people are on board, you do it, and there's no awkwardness between, am I going to have a second date, a third date, a fourth date, unless there's a major deal breaker, unless you realize like, oh, he's not who he says he is or something like that. But yeah, so she did it. She did the 5-date challenge. There's other fives involved. Don't talk to more than 5 people about it. Don't have a date for more than 5 hours. Don't let like 5 days go between dates. Anyway, things like that. But I'm happy to say she is in a very loving, successful, honest, like mutually respectful relationship. And a lot of it was kicked off from this 5-date challenge.
Wow. Wow. I don't know. It sounds like I was actually thinking about it. I'm like, because Shana told me a little bit about it before we were recording, back when we talked a little while ago. And it seems like a really cool concept. I haven't met a guy who I like enough that I want to commit to 5 dates with in a long time, but it definitely is an interesting idea for if I do to like try. And it's like you get to know someone, like you said, no pressure. And then at the end of the 5 dates, you can see if you want to continue or not.
Absolutely. Oh, and the major part about it, I like didn't mean to leave out the major part, but the major part is it's more of a Shomer Nagia kind of style, like a no touching style for people that might not know that term. But it transcends beyond, even Judaism or religion, whatnot. It's more about getting to know the human being who you're spending time with before you open that box and have affection and intimacy, because once you do that, you can't then turn it back and be like, oh, now I need to get to know you, so it's also like a no physical contact 5 first dates.
Wow. Yeah. That and yeah, I don't know. I think in general, physical contact kind of like adds a layer of like like to make it more complicated to relationships and in dating, especially at the beginning phases. So I think that is like probably one of the most important rules of the 5 dates.
Absolutely. I mean, you don't want to conflate, do I like any physical contact? Do I like physical touch? Or do I like this person who I'm getting to know?
Yeah.
It can get tricky and confusing because, most people want to be close to someone and have that, connection. And once you start that intimacy, it's hard to differentiate between the person and the enjoying being intimate.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. So do you have any other stories that you want to tell before I get into questions?
Wow. Let's get into questions, and then I'm sure the stories will be infused throughout
Okay.
the answers.
Okay. And if you need to wrap up at any time, just let me know. I know we're like a little over your time. So,
We're good. We're good.
okay. But just you can let me know and we can cut it off wherever. Um,
Okay.
okay. So I think um and you guys have listened to my some of my earlier episodes where we talk about guys and girls with very crazy preferences. So, Shayna, as a matchmaker, what are some of the craziest requests or preferences that you've heard from both genders?
Absolutely. Well, I mean, it's no secret, and I don't know if it's so crazy, but it's a little unfortunate that like women tend to be stuck on height, a man's height. So I wouldn't say that it's a crazy preference, but it turns to be a very inconvenient one, you know? I mean, if a man has a lot going on for himself and he's proud of himself and he's, a great catch in so many ways, but like, he's 5'7" or 6" or whatever. I mean, that does create a barrier sometimes. And a woman, I think she should kind of be a little bit more open-minded. So that's one. Again, I know it's not a crazy one, but it's a very common one that I think people need to release, man. Release from the height thing.
I'm only 5'2", so I honestly I think the shortest guy I ever went on a date with was exactly my height. I don't think
Mhm.
there are so many guys who are shorter than me in general, even in the
Right.
Jewish world. So
Right. It reminds me of there was a website of like famous tall women and they're like hot short boyfriends, something like that. You can Google it.
well, I mean, for those of you who like follow all the TikTok trends, short kings are in. So
Mhm. Nice. I agree. That's true. So anyway, again, not crazy, but yes, it's a prevalent preference that can be hindering from really finding, a person that you really want to be with. I would say another one, a lot of physical, attributes. But listen, I get it in some way. I get it. If you're somebody that goes to CrossFit or the gym, 5 to 7 times a day, I mean, a week, I'm not going to match you someone that doesn't really even know where the gym is. Like obviously those lifestyles don't go together. I'm talking more about when something is close, but then a person has like a very rigid cutoff. A lot of times, again, men tend to want to cap a woman's age in his preferences. That's a very, very hot topic for a lot of women. The men's reason is usually because they want to, have enough time to date and to have children and to, explore that relationship. So they tend to want to have a much younger, not much, but, they tend to have their cutoffs of age. Now, there's a lot to be said about that. Um, ultimately only, fertility is, unique to each woman's body, or you could say only God controls it, or, whatever your belief system is. So on one hand, it's hard to really say a certain age is associated, with the ability to have children. But that seems to be a really hot topic. So I would say, yeah, age of a woman, height of a man. Those are two very hot topics in preferences.
yeah, for sure. And then I don't know if this goes along the lines of requests, but what are like the biggest reasons for one, like for each gender, that people say no for A, going on a date, and then for B, after like one date, one meetup, why they would say no to someone?
Okay, great question. A lot of times people are looking for an immediate spark. They want an immediate spark where they can like see that person as their husband or wife forever and ever and ever, and and storybook, and that's how it's going to go. For women, sometimes that grows, men sometimes tend to be, and yes, I know I'm generalizing, and yes, I realize that there's so many different preferences, but in my years of matchmaking and interviewing people and discussing people's preferences, this seems to be the stereotypical traditional, preferences, so to speak. So yes, I know that's the place that I'm speaking from. With that said, uh, say it again, because then I lost it.
So the biggest reasons people say no for going on a date, like from like if you see someone's profile, like what's the reason, biggest reasons they say no, and then no after one date. So I guess like the spark thing after one date, which I
Yeah.
get. Um,
Yeah, but women can grow in their emotional connection and their physical attraction, whereas typically, this is where I was going with that. Typically, men might be more visual and they might get attracted, visually first, where a woman might be attracted to a man based on other criteria. A man usually is goes off visual cues and stimulation and things like that. But that's why sometimes people do or do not choose a date. And then if they do have a date, if they didn't feel the click, oh, I just didn't feel a click, then that's it. And then they don't try again. I mean, not everybody has a great first date, but I really recommend that if there's no deal breakers, I would say have a second date, just get a little bit more information. I always tell people, keep dating that person until you have a clear yes or no. If you're like in a maybe zone, well, just have another date. All you're doing is collecting information to see if you like this person.
How long do you think you would say, like in your professional opinion, is too long to stay in the mate? Like, I don't know, like
Mhm.
you keep going out with someone and like you like certain things, but you're still unsure. Like, how long is too long until you're just like, okay, this unsure is a no?
Okay, yeah, that's a great question. I would say if you're dating for marriage, like especially if you're never married, no kids, and you're really looking to enter a marriage for the first time, I would say that you could know a little bit sooner. And it's true. You don't want to waste your time. You don't want to waste their time. You don't want to string people along. That's why that 5 date rule is a pretty good amount of time. I think you can get a lot of information in about 5 dates, and they don't have to drag out on and on and on. You can get this done in you know 4 or 5 weeks. You know what I mean? You could get that done, and to then gather enough information if you like someone or not. And if you and it's sometimes it's hard to break it off, or maybe you're wondering if things are going to change. I guess if you keep wondering if things are going to change and they never do, that might be your indicator to end it. Or if you just, you did the 5 dates or whatnot and you realize it's just not going anywhere, and you can mutually agree usually that it's not going anywhere, but end it nicely, because you never know who their friends are, who your friends are. You could meet somebody based on somebody else's friend, and always end things amicably unless there's like a clear reason not to.
Yeah. Okay, so we went through, oh, and then I guess you kind of said in the request, but like the biggest reasons that people will say no, like you send people a match, like what's the biggest reason that they'll say no to the match to even like go on a date?
Yeah, well, sometimes a picture, sometimes it's physical attributes, but sometimes it's something like, um, nowadays, politics are very polarizing. If somebody is of a different political opinion, they might not want to go on a date with that person. If somebody has different beliefs of like health and wellness, they're gonna pass. Those are the like kind of now reasons why people might pass on a date. Religious observances, that's another big one. But you know what? When it comes to matchmaking, like I probably wouldn't have presented them with an option where I knew that they would probably say no.
Yeah.
That's a little bit different. But yeah, usually those are the reasons why people might swipe,
Yeah.
away from the prospect.
So
Yeah.
what are some of like people you've worked with, clients, everything? What are some of the craziest reasons that you've heard people say no to?
Wow, that's a good one. One of the craziest. Oh, people being allergic to cats or dogs. I don't know if it's crazy. I don't know if it's crazy, but I have to say it's irritating. Yeah. No, I can't go on a date with him. He has a cat. I mean, okay, so if I don't know, take allergy medicine. I don't know. I'm sure there's like ways to solve that problem, but like pets, sometimes pets are starters or non-starters. Um, what's another crazy reason? Oh, Oh, I knew someone who dated this girl and they think she's, this and this and this. So like rumors, sometimes towns are small. Sometimes people have dated the same people, or they might all know, the same woman or man or whatever. So I think if the top three if they match the top three preferences, like, why not take the date? Just because she didn't, you know, she dated your best friend's roommate in college, like, who cares? Like, go on the date.
Yeah. Um, and then how can I mean, I know some of these questions just kind of like blend into each other with the answers, but how can each gender make themselves more marketable? Like you get singles and they're like, "Okay, I'm having no luck dating." How what would be your advice to tell them to make themselves like more marketable to the opposite gender, or I guess same gender, if to whoever they're looking to date?
Yes, absolutely. First of all, invest in a professional photograph of yourself. I'm telling you, it goes a long way. Nobody likes the stupid selfie of you in the bathroom, like no. Dating for marriage is one of the most important, mergers, so to speak, of your life. Invest in a good picture of yourself. Listen, if you have a friend and they might be a good photographer, sure, go for it. I get it. But like, if you're going to hire a matchmaker, go and get professional photos done. Because what I'm doing is I'm like also their PR person, I'm their hype person, I'm their marketer, I'm going to my colleagues and being like, oh my God, you have to meet Rachel. Here's why she's so amazing, which I'll do for you, by the way.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Here's why she's so amazing. And here's her picture. You don't, the worst thing is when then the matchmaker comes back, like one of my colleagues comes back and says, do you have like 5 more pictures? Because these pictures suck, So
Mhm.
definitely number one, get a good picture. Number two, just like imagine to yourself the person you want to be dating, and are you the person that they would want to be dating? Like, what do you bring to the table? What do you have to offer? Are you bringing an equal basket to the picnic, or are you just, looking for somebody and you're not like adding value? So I would say those are two things that I think are super important. Invest in a good picture and consider what your ideal spouse wants in a marriage, in a spouse, and be that person.
Okay. I definitely need new pictures of myself. I do have like nice pictures, but I had like some really like big like events like in 2021 and 2020. So I had like nice pictures from that, but those are all old now. So would you say, like, I guess, how often should someone like revamp their pictures?
I would say you would want a picture at least once a year. I mean,
Okay.
unless you really look the exact same. But I would say, every 12 months, maybe update. 12 to 18 months. I'll give it 18 even. But, a year's time seems to be about right for new
Okay.
pictures. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yeah, I'm definitely coming up on that.
There you
Probably
go.
the 18 months and the 12, but we're working on it.
It's
Um
fun.
and then I guess my last question is, as a matchmaker, and I know like you take on clients who hire you, but if you're just out and about meeting people and like they come up to you and they just want like you to keep them in mind, maybe not like actually hire you for services yet, what makes someone stand out to you as a matchmaker?
Yeah, definitely. Well, first of all, people can definitely join my complimentary and private database. Yes, people do hire me, but then I have my database for that exact reason, for people that want to be a resource member and they're not ready to hire a matchmaker. So they can join that database And when I have a client or somebody in my network has a client, and then I look to my resource members first. I've made ton of matches for people that they got a free match just by being in my database. And hey, legit shout out to Corona Crush anyway, because I've definitely, used the search fields, looked in different cities, respectfully said, hey, do you want a free match? I think I have a person for you. And I've definitely, helped people foster matches in that way also. Oh, a success story. We have an engagement. Ian, are you listening? We have an engagement. Um, I was talking to somebody. He was thinking about hiring me, and like we talked and talked and talked, and it got to the point where like we became buddies. You know what I mean? Like, yes, I'm a matchmaker, but I'm also a human being, and I'm a friend, and I'm a Jewish person who loves to see people be happy and get married. So anyway, we became like friends. Okay, and I saw a woman. I saw a woman post, and I had actually reached out to her on behalf of a different client that I had. So I was talking to her, screening her, considering her to be a match for a different client. She turned out to not be a match for my client, but something like touched me, something sparked. I don't know. I have like a flash of intuition sometimes. And I saw her post something about herself, and I just tagged the guy friend, the guy who became a friend. And I was like, hey, say hi to her. Fast forward, they ended up meeting, they ended up buying plane tickets, meeting each other. Then she moved to his town. And then a few weeks ago, I got a picture with an engagement ring. So they're getting
Wow.
married. Yeah.
Mazel tov. Wow.
Yeah. So I'm also a nice person. I do things for free too. But yes, this is also my business.
Yeah. And um of course, like I'll have Shayna send me the links to all of her information. And if anyone's interested in hiring Shayna for her services or joining her database or anything, I'll have her give me the links. I'll post it in the episode description. And everyone is definitely encouraged to check it out. And I mean, Shayna's great from all the interactions I've had with her. I can tell why people like working with you. Like, she's just amazing. So,
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, when I saw that you were looking for guests on your podcast, I was like, oh my God, I love it. I first of all, I couldn't wait to talk to you, and definitely not just because of the Corona Crush sponsorship, because I definitely respect them and use that site often, but it's exciting, and I love talking about dating, and I love helping people, and so I really appreciate this opportunity because it's been super fun.
yeah. And I appreciate that you reached out and you took the time to talk to me. And okay, so Shayna, is there
Yes.
anything else that you want to share before we get into our like concluding segments?
I guess I would just like people to know that no matter what stage you're in regards to what you're looking for in life, do always try to like look and feel your best about yourself, because that's who you're gonna attract. You don't. I would say a person. It doesn't really matter necessarily about looks or this or that, but like if you're your most confident self, you're going to attract the right person. So I think there's someone for there's someone for everyone. And just be your best self.
That's I guess that is that your piece of advice for the one piece of dating advice that I
Yeah.
always ask my guests? That's a good piece of advice.
Absolutely. Be your best self. You're you, and rock it. If there's something that isn't making if there's something that you wish you looked different or felt different or needed to do some changes in life, then work on yourself, because that's who you're going to attract. So yeah, do the work, be your best self, and that's what you're going to attract in return.
Okay. I like that. It is good. And even like if you have things you want to change about yourself, like sometimes you can't really change things about yourself, but if you change your mindset to feel good about yourself and be confident, like I found that people like confidence.
Absolutely. People love confidence because they feel comfortable in your presence. You know, people feel comfortable around people that like themselves.
Yeah. Okay. And Shayna, the last thing that I always ask all my guests, do you have your tagline?
Oh, okay. So yeah, I create couples in the US, Israel, and globally. So people who are marriage minded can give me a ring and I'll help them out.
Okay, awesome. Okay, Shayna, this has been so fun. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me, for telling the stories and everything.
Thank you, Rachel. I really appreciate it. And I hope you can. I am relaunching my podcast, and I'd love for you to be on mine.
I would love that. Of course. And Shticky Situation Nation, like I'll post the links, and once I am on and the episode is out, like you guys will all know and you can go and listen to Shayna's podcast also. So
Thank you,
what's the name
Rachel.
of your podcast? So
Oh,
my
yes.
listeners can go and listen.
Oh, good one. It's called Romance Report with Shana TV.
Okay. Everyone should go check it out. I definitely am going to be checking it out.
Thank you,
Um,
Rachel.
but yeah, so Shayna, again, this has been amazing. Thank you so, so much.
Happy dating, Shticky Situation Nation.
Yes, happy dating, Sticky Situation Nation. Um, thank you all for listening, and you'll catch me next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.